This isn't just a nightmare for the Labour Party. It is the worst type of sit bolt upright in the middle of the night, sweating and screaming nightmares, because it blows a hole in the entire political strategy that Keir Starmer had for hoping to hang on to seats at the next general election, which was to turn to all the people who don't want Reform UK winning seats in power and say to them the only way of avoiding that is by voting Labour. But it wasn't Labour, who were the also-rans here, that actually defeated Reform. It was the Greens. And so people to the left of Keir Starmer in his own party now are going to be saying to him, you need to start preaching more to the left, forget what they see as aping the anti-migrant tone of Reform. You need to be uniting the left more and changing your tone and direction. And some of them are saying that they feel a wounded Keir Starmer is going to be easier to lean on, to pull in that direction. If he was looking for any trace of comfort today, Keir Starmer, well, there were only familiar voices saying he must go, but there are an awful lot of people behind the scenes saying it is now a done deal that he will go. They just haven't worked out how. One other thing for him to think about, one of the advantages of these larger, what we may soon have to call legacy political parties, is that they're supposed to have amazing political operations. But Labour, it seems, didn't see this coming.
Hannah Catherine Spencer is duly elected Member of Parliament for the Gorton and Denton constituency.
Labour said this could not happen and prayed it wouldn't. The Greens defeated Reform, the job Keir Starmer said only Labour could pull off. And the new Green MP sounded like an old-style Labour class warrior.
I've made clear my position and my commitment to working class communities, the community that I am from. People in their thousands told me on the doorsteps and at the ballot box that what we are sick of is being let down and looked down on, that we are sick of our hard work making other people rich.
Hannah Spencer barely mentioned green issues in her acceptance speech. The broader radical agenda of the party's leader, Zach Polansky, now road-tested triumphantly. Keir Starmer, in defeat, repeated his campaign appeals.
I will keep on fighting for those people for as long as I've got breath in my body. I will also fight against extremes in politics, on the right and the left, parties who want to tear our country apart.
Is that a good tactic to label thousands of voters extremists?
It's a dreadful tactic. Labour could have won back traditional Labour voters by being a better government, not by calling parties names.
Reform UK's vote in unpromising political terrain suggested their opinion poll ratings are accurate. Their candidate not entirely accepting defeat.
I don't think the Progressives beat us. I think the Progressives were told how to vote, and I think what you saw was a coalition of Islamists and woke progressives that came together to dominate a constituency.
The Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, said Keir Starmer was now finished. But the Tories got their worst ever by-election result last night, and some detect still more signs that the century-long two-party system may be crumbling. Just as the combined strength of the Labour and Conservative Party votes plummeted in the Caerphilly Senedd by-election last year from 63% when last contested to a puny 13%, and the Runcorn parliamentary by-election saw the combined Labour-Tory vote fall from nearly 70 to well under half the votes, yesterday saw what are traditionally called the two main parties' share of the vote down from 60% in the general election to just over a quarter.
If Labour and the Conservatives ceased to be seen as the parties that can win, it's like Tinkerbell in Peter Pan. Tinkerbell's power comes from people's belief in her. If people cease to believe in Labour as a party that can win here, that can win there, that can win everywhere, they can go very quickly from winning everywhere to losing everywhere. Same with the Conservatives, which is what happened to the Liberals in the 1920s. This could be looked back upon as another such turning point.
You're not sorry not to be the candidate, Andy?
No, we've got a brilliant candidate and she hasn't put a foot wrong. She's been out every day. She's done us proud, hasn't she, Lucy?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're really
all
proud of you.
One team here and Angelique is going to be right in the middle of the team.
The Green Party leader said he'd been delighted when Keir Starmer blocked his potential leadership challenger, Andy Burnham, running in this seat.
I'll be completely honest, when Andy Burnham wasn't selected, I punched the air And I thought it's very probable we can win this.
You wanted Andy Burnham to run in this seat so that he could, if not immediately, pretty soon, replace Keir Starmer. Without him in Parliament, does Keir Starmer just carry on, battered, defeated?
Well, that's certainly how it looks at the moment, isn't it? Frankly, there are no real solid candidates inside Parliament whose names are being mooted that I would support. We need to find a way of getting Burnham into Parliament.
Labour strategists now have to worry about a whole new electoral phenomenon: green wall seats. Our analysis suggests there could be as many as 50 Labour constituencies in England with younger populations, many who are renting, some with Greens already in second place, which could fall dramatically to the Greens, much like Gorton did, including the seats of the Deputy Prime Minister, the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, and the Prime Minister himself.
The Green vote is very concentrated in particular demographics: ethnic minorities, young people, progressive graduates, and all of those groups tend to cluster together. And here's the paradox: their tendency to cluster together is exactly why Labour has tended to marginalise these groups, because it wasn't electorally efficient to focus on those voters in those seats. They were going to win anyway. That same electoral calculus now favours the Greens rising very rapidly in these places, because they can say to these voters, you're not being listened to, you're not being mobilised, you're being neglected by the Labour Party that represents you around here. Why not give somebody else a try?
It's a very disappointing result. Incumbent governments quite often get results like that mid-term.
But this was not a normal mid-term knockback. Voters are shifting around as rarely before. Febrile politics, a challenge to any political leader, truly taxing for a Prime Minister with a divided party circling challengers and his ratings on the floor.
Well, our North of England correspondent Claire Fallon joins us from Manchester, where she's been trying to speak to the man blocked from running for Labour in Gorton and Denton. Claire.
And that is why I'm in the centre of Manchester this evening, not in the constituency itself, because just over an hour ago, Andy Burnham was at an event here on stage, talking to the people who were gathered there. Now, straightforwardly, he was not here to talk about the by-election, a by-election in which he was blocked from standing. And his people were absolutely insistent that he would not be doing any interviews, not taking any questions, that this was not what it was about. Instead, it was about the Brit Awards, which are happening in Manchester tomorrow night, and about the fringe work around that for upcoming artists from working class backgrounds in the city. But bear in mind, Andy Burnham, I think it's fair to say, has a reputation for choosing his words very carefully and choosing when he says them. So up on that stage, as he was talking about working class talent, I think there was a subtle but very clear indication of his views right now.
We know it's getting harder sometimes for working class talent to break through into the music industry. There is a class ceiling, and we've got to break that, haven't we? And well done to the BPI for putting on Brit Springe. And you know me, I'm all in favour of helping people whose career paths are blocked. So well in, BPI, that's just what we want to do.
Well, those words there from Andy Burnham, I am all in favour of helping people whose career paths are blocked. I think those words will absolutely focus minds on what he will do next. As for what the Reform Party will do next, bear in mind, when we started this campaign, they were really seen as being the front runners to challenge the Labour Party in the constituency. Well, they've gone to the police today, saying that they want an investigation into claims that have been made of family voting by an organisation that monitors elections. Police have told us that they are looking into that report that's been made. As for the Green Party and the new MP for Gorton and Denton, Hannah Spencer, Hannah the plumber, well, it's almost been like the campaign hasn't ended. She's been on a relentless chain of events and photos ops today ahead of going to Parliament next week.
Claire Fallon in Manchester. Well, earlier I spoke to the leader of the Green Party, Zach Polanski, and I asked him if this changes his national ambitions.
It definitely does change our national ambitions, but those have been changing all the time anyway. To give some context, when I was elected leader of the Green Party on September the 2nd, during that leadership campaign, we had about 55,000 members. As I said, we're about to hit 200,000. We've also tripled in the opinion polls. But what I would say is that level of ambition has rapidly increased very quickly.
Labour and the Tories are both attacking you as extremists, as people who try to sweep up the Muslim vote in this very unusual constituency by pressing the point on Gaza. And that, A, that doesn't translate to every seat in the country, but B, it takes us into a new era of divisive, they say, sectarian politics.
I think those are deeply cynical attack lines from both the Labour Party and the Conservative Party. We've seen a genocide in Gaza that has been ongoing for years now. It's not just me that's calling it a genocide, that's also including genocide scholars. So I think it's really important that we're morally consistent on that. On top of that, I think it's important to say I'm a Jewish man, and one of 5 Jewish people have been in leadership positions in British politics. I think anyone who cares about morality and humanity has shown moral consistency in saying they don't want to vote for a party that is complicit or actively enabling that. That's not the only conversations we were having on the ground. People were largely concerned about their bills and lowering their bills, but it is also true that people have deep concerns about the actions of this Labour government that were also ongoing under the Conservative government too.
It seems likely that Labour could move to the left, though, amidst all of this. There may be a change of leader. The soft left seem in the ascendancy in the Labour Party. Might they win some of those voters back?
Sure, that might make my job a little bit more difficult as Green Party leader, but actually, frankly, as a citizen of this country, I'd absolutely applaud that and look to work with them on that. That being said, I don't think there's any evidence that's the direction the Labour Party are going to move, and I think they'll probably learn all the wrong lessons from this. This is the same Labour Party that wanted to slash disability benefits, that eventually lifted the 2-child benefit cap, and it may be that some Labour leader comes in and changes it all. But I don't see who that person is, because actually every time there's been a Labour leadership election, anyone who's even on the soft left, as you put it, doesn't even make it on the ballot paper.
What if they actually asked you to work with them? Could the Greens and the Labour Party work together under different leadership, obviously? Would you be interested?
I'm always keen to work with anyone who shares my values and wants to campaign on cross-party issues. I'm a pluralist at heart. The party is that too. But we know there are lots of Labour MPs, and there's only a couple of them I could imagine that would take the Labour Party in a direction where we could possibly work with them.
Did you see any parallels or similarities between your movement and Nigel Farage where he was some time ago, in that, he had this radical idea to leave the European Union, which everybody said, well, that's bonkers, it's never going to happen. You have some pretty far-out ideas there as well, in terms of possibly leaving NATO. Do you think that with time, the ideas that you're espousing that people say are crazy could become mainstream?
I would say what is crazy, if we're going to use that term, is continuing to view Donald Trump as an ally. This is a man who has threatened to annex Greenland, one of our supposed NATO allies. That would trigger Article 5, which means an attack on one is an attack on all. And actually what I've been saying is we should be having conversations and dialogue with our European neighbours to actually deal with the threat of Donald Trump in the same way that we're dealing with the threat of Vladimir Putin or Benjamin Netanyahu. I think it's about recognising who the authoritarians are in our world, and I would consider Donald Trump one of them. To the wider point, I don't see a lot of parallels with Nigel Farage. This is a man who claims to be a man of the people, but he's a man of the wealthy people. Sure, he managed to make Brexit happen from outside Parliament, and so I suppose there's a comparison to be made there in terms of I think it's important to both be in Parliament, but also, frankly, I think there's a lot of work to be done within our communities. But I don't really see Nigel Farage doing that. I see him going on right-wing news channels and grifting.
Zach Polanski, thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I also spoke to the Environment Secretary, Emma Reynolds, and I asked her whether the Manchester Mayor, Andy Burnham, would have won the seat if he'd have been allowed to stand for Labour.
It's not clear to me that a different candidate would have got a different result. Unfortunately, we came third last night, and I totally respect the decision that was taken by the National Executive Committee that we didn't want to see the disruption of a mayoral by-election, which is equivalent to 20 parliamentary by-elections. So I think they were right not to allow that to happen. I've got enormous time for my colleague Andy Burnham. He's a great mayor of Manchester, but we had a great candidate in Angeliki Stoyer, somebody who's a local champion, but unfortunately we were unable to win last night. That is something obviously that's very disappointing to the Labour Party, and we will reflect on the results overnight. We need to make sure that we do deliver the change that people voted for back at the general election to improve their living standards and to improve public services.
Do you accept that you're not at the moment? And that's what people feel?
Just next week, for example, the first rail fare freeze in 30 years is coming in. In April, people will see more than £100 off their energy bills. But I accept that, you know, people want to see more change than we've already delivered. We've had 6 interest rate cuts, food inflation coming down, but people want to feel those changes.
The trouble is, you know that a huge number of your colleagues are quietly furious. And we're now in a sort of a... People talk about phony war. We're now in a phony peace where no one's going to move against Keir Starmer until after the May local elections. You know, it's a very weird time in politics right now as the Labour Party tries to sort out its future direction.
Well, what I saw yesterday at the by-election, and I was there yesterday and last week and a couple of weeks before, was a huge collective effort from right across the Labour Party, Labour MPs, across the whole political spectrum of our parliamentary Labour Party, Labour councillors, Labour volunteers.
But you know how
all
divided the party
the
is,
country.
don't you?
Well, look, I think, of course, there are people in the Labour Party who are complaining about the results overnight. I understand that they're disappointed. I'm disappointed too. But I think what we saw 2 weeks ago is the entire cabinet and the vast majority of the parliamentary Labour Party, Labour MPs, uniting behind Keir Starmer, because what we saw in the last Conservative government is the British public take a very dim view of a party that continues to change their leader every few months. That's what the Conservatives did, and I don't think the British public liked it because it produces such economic instability, and
that's
it's not
what
good,
really
therefore,
happened.
for people's living standards.
People didn't unite behind Keir Starmer. They just stepped away from having a leadership election at that point because they couldn't decide and agree on who the replacement should be, and Angela Rayner wasn't in a position to run yet because she's still got problems over her tax bill. I mean, that's what I mean by this sort of phony peace where, you know, your colleagues are not united behind Keir Starmer. They just can't work out what next.
Well, I don't accept that because I was at that parliamentary Labour Party meeting a couple of weeks ago of Labour MPs, and there was real warmth and affection for Keir Starmer. He is a leader that turned around our party fortunes in 5 short years. I lost my seat in 2019. It was one of the worst results for the Labour Party under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn for many, many decades. And Keir Starmer has turned round our party in that time and secured a 5-year mandate to govern the country. And a big majority. So I don't accept that people aren't behind Keir and Labour MPs aren't behind Keir. The Labour MPs that I talk to want us to get on with the job. Of course, we need to ensure that we are communicating what we're doing, perhaps more persuasively to the British public, and we need to step up the things we're doing to improve people's living standards. I think there's an acceptance of that.
Emma Reynolds, thank you very much. Well, joining me now is the New Statement's Megan Kenyon and the former number 10 advisor under the Blair and Brown governments, Theo Bertram. Megan, there's a sort of a fake calm in Labour at the moment, but there is a reckoning coming.
Yeah, I think the fact that Labour lost in Gorton and Denton, in Greater Manchester, an area which is such a Labour stronghold, obviously Andy Burnham is the mayor of Greater Manchester there, shows how historic this by-election really is. And to come in third place to the Green Party, who won a 4,000 vote majority, shows, you know, no one was really expecting that. I think everyone thought it would be tight, but not quite the Greens to go out as far as they did.
The question of leadership will play out whenever it plays out after the local elections, but Starmer has nailed his colours very clearly, calling the Greens extremists. Isn't it quite hard to shift to the left to try and appeal to people who are going to the Greens if you call them extremists?
Yeah, I think what this election showed today is that the idea that you can just get by saying, vote for us because we're not reform, has been tested to destruction. People want to vote for something, and I think there are 2 things that today confirmed for the Parliamentary Labour Party. One is that people don't listen to Keir Starmer anymore. And the second is that although people are confident in the Labour Party in the long-term policy reform, there isn't enough radicalism, there isn't enough sense of change in the near and medium-term policy change.
I mean, having worked in the centre, is the centre just so weak now that they're incapable of coming up with the ideas?
I think Keir Starmer is Prime Minister with a big majority. It's very difficult to remove Prime Ministers. I was there under Gordon Brown. It took a long time. People were trying to get rid of him and they didn't manage it. And it took a long time for Gordon Brown to take over from Tony Blair. So I think Labour Prime Ministers are more durable than people expect. I think the sort of Game of Thrones drama that we're starting to experience in the Labour Party may go on all year.
I mean, I sort of mean in policy terms, Megan. I mean, you know, do they appear capable of a new agenda, or is it just they're going to communicate what they've been doing a bit better?
I think,
a bit more?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. When I was up in Gorton and Denton last weekend and I went out with some Labour canvassers, and they were saying to me, there are so many positive things that we've done, the Renters' Rights Act, the Employment Rights Bill, that we're just not talking about, and it's not on our campaign literature. Instead, all we're saying is, oh, don't vote for the Green Party because they will legalise all drugs. And that didn't really seem to cut through with voters, and it didn't really seem to be winning over the Labour activists too.
What do you think the threat is now in terms of the Greens? You know, I mean, do they represent to Labour what reform represented to the Tories?
I think it's perhaps too early to say that yet. This is obviously a by-election, but I think once the May elections come around, we've obviously got elections in Scotland and Wales, where the Greens are looking, particularly in Wales and in the English local elections in London, to make some quite big gains. I think after today, we could see in Wales the potential of them even getting into government in the Senedd alongside Plaid Cymru, after obviously Plaid Cymru won the Caerphilly by-election last year. So it's certainly, the momentum is picking up.
Theo, well, what do you see as the sort of the structural shift that may happen now?
I think behind closed doors, what's happening among the would-be leadership contenders, among different groups in the Labour Party, and indeed inside Number 10 itself, is a sort of soft manifesto building. There is going to be a policy change that is likely to happen, whether Keir Starmer is toppled or not, after the May elections. And I think there is a sense that there needs to be greater boldness in what the near-term policy is. So you're seeing some of those, that desire, that appetite for a bit more radicalism, and I think that would be a good thing from Labour.
But how can you balance the demands of both left and right if you've got to appeal to both those people with a new policy agenda?
There are things...
Can you triangulate it?
I think, parties have proved that you can do that in the past, but I think take council tax. Council tax needs reform. Taking that on is not a left-right issue, it's a boldness issue. Social care, it's an issue that also needs solving. These are big, meaty problems, and I think if people think that you are radical, that you're serious, that you have a purpose, I think then that makes it easier to go out and convince them on the doorstep in places like Manchester.
And what do you think Andy Burnham is hinting at tonight? Is he going to have another go at a by-election and sort of dare the Labour Party to deny him again? I'm
not sure, but I think we haven't heard the last from him yet, certainly.
What would your guess be on that?
I would be surprised if Andy doesn't keep trying for a seat, and I suspect there'll be lots of Labour parties around the country that would be keen to have him as their MP.
Does it make sense that people seem to sort of regard him as some sort of holy grail, given that he lost the leadership twice?
I think it's a lot easier to be outside the cabinet and looking in from the outside, if I can phrase it like that, rather than being inside the cabinet and trying to be loyal at the same time. So I think in some ways, I mean, we are seeing Manchesterism. It has had a big boost, but a lot of that has been from things that are not entirely within Andy Burnham's control. But I do think he does offer the ability to communicate. I think he offers an optimistic agenda. And I think that's something that voters and the PLP itself are keen to see.
Theo Bertram, Megan Kenyon, thank you very much indeed. Well, I've also been getting the response of Reform UK to the election result for the latest episode of The Forecast.
This is a party now that's sectarian, that wants to legalise hard drugs, that has attitudes on transgender issues that are way outside of the mainstream. And so, in a way, the Greens in winning have invited the kind of scrutiny that people like me have wanted the Greens to face for a long time.
You can watch it on our YouTube channel. It's on Spotify, the Channel 4 website, and wherever you get your podcasts. It also includes the extended interview with Zach Polanski.